Hi everyone, Nick here. Welcome back. Spot Bitcoin ETFs have recently gained approval from the SEC and started trading. A lot of people are talking about Bitcoin and others are considering buying it. Some view this as the beginning of Bitcoin's financialization, increasing its demand, its monetary premium, and so on, which they believe will lead to Bitcoin going above $100,000. Others view it as one of the last hype cycles, potentially reaching the final stages before the bubble ultimately pops. In this video, we'll discuss why people buy Bitcoin, conflicts around the new ETF, and I'll share why I'm not buying Bitcoin or the new ETF. Why do people buy Bitcoin? These are the reasons I typically hear. First is it's the hardest form of money ever created. People talk about how money needs to be durable, portable, fungible, verifiable, divisible, and scarce. They argue that Bitcoin meets these attributes better than gold or fiat currencies issued by governments. Next, there is a fixed supply. Supposedly, the supply of Bitcoin is capped and won't increase once it reaches a certain point. Next, it is outside of the traditional financial system. So it allows you to exchange Bitcoins with anyone in the world without government or regulators in between. Next, it is censorship resistant, making it more difficult for governments or others to prevent you from using it or engaging in financial transactions. Next is the technology. Bitcoin has very interesting technology involving the blockchain, proof of work, and so on. Finally, they argue there's a monetary premium and that Bitcoin is a store of value. That as the adoption of Bitcoin increases and more people buy it, this monetary premium and store of value will increase. Why is the spot ETF important? Well, first, the original Bitcoin ETFs were futures ETFs or based on derivative contracts, whereas a spot ETF actually holds the Bitcoin. This simplifies the process of buying Bitcoin. There's no wallets, keys, or potentially accidentally losing your Bitcoin that's in cold storage and so on. This can provide greater liquidity to the Bitcoin market, bringing in new investors and making it easier to trade. It involves traditional financial institutions and regulators, which may also bring more comfort to people, leading to additional investors. However, there are some potential downsides. First, it's against the philosophy of many Bitcoin holders. Significant portion of the allure of Bitcoin to many people is that it is outside the traditional financial system, and many hold it themselves in their own crypto wallets, off exchanges, and so on. There are also pretty high fees with some of these ETFs. There is some potential regulatory uncertainty, and there is risk of things like cyber theft if the institutions that manage the ETFs get hacked or don't manage the Bitcoin correctly. So there's some extra risks. Now I'll talk about why I am not buying Bitcoin or the new Bitcoin ETF. I've seen Bitcoin go through a couple phases of identity. First, when I heard about it, it was described as a currency, something people would transact in instead of dollars or other currencies. However, not many people seem to be using Bitcoin in this way, as a currency. Transactions are too costly. Bitcoin doesn't really scale well. It's very expensive to operate the blockchain. And good alternatives already exist. Maybe it would help to serve people who don't have access to good financial systems for whatever reason. Seems that most of the people using Bitcoin are involved in some kind of criminal activity. Maybe they're trying to sneak money out of their country. They're involved in some kind of drugs or ransomware or something. Another thing I see with Bitcoin is it has a lot of unnecessary costly features for a currency. For instance, do I really need proof of work when I buy a burrito at Chipotle? Do I need instantaneous overseas transfers without a regulated institution to function as a middleman and make the transaction a little safer? I already get free wires and they don't really take that long or much hassle. The traditional financial system meets all of my needs for a currency. I can already go anywhere in the world and use my credit card or withdraw local currency from an ATM. Credit cards also provide great consumer protections, and regulators and institutions help protect against fraud and so on. So in summary, Bitcoin has some features that make it more costly, less scalable, and unattractive as a currency. It is missing features of the traditional financial system that make it safer and have greater protections. Next, there's one other big thing when it comes to Bitcoin versus other currencies, and that is that Bitcoin is not operated or controlled by a government. Governments for millennia have had a monopoly on money. The power to create and control money is an immense tool. Why would they give this up? So for use as a currency, I believe this tips the scales in the favor of governments who have the power to do things if Bitcoin becomes a threat to their monopolized currency. They have the power to tax Bitcoin transactions, ban them altogether, or so on. It's actually some interesting history where the US government banned private ownership of gold in the 1930s and forced everybody to sell them their gold at a low price. After hearing about people talk about Bitcoin as a currency, I started hearing more and more people calling it digital gold and a great store of value. But I ask, what value? When people explain this to me, just doesn't really make that much sense to me. The only value I see in Bitcoin is other people believing it has value. It's not even a physical asset. For instance, let's compare it to gold, which has been the most reliable store of value for thousands of years. Gold is a physical asset. You can actually hold it in your hand. There are industrial uses of gold. It's in almost every cell phone. It's used in jewelry, people wear it daily. It's also used to back many currencies and so on. There is a lot of demand for gold and utility. Let me ask you a question. Are you going to get down on one knee to propose to your future wife? And out of your pocket, you're going to pull a thumb drive containing 4.2% of one Bitcoin. Now that's meant to be kind of a silly question, but really, what are you going to use it for? And why would it continue to hold value 100 years from now? My opinion, for Bitcoin to continue to have value, people need to believe it has value. A final point, some people say that Bitcoin could serve as good diversification in a portfolio because it's not well correlated with bonds or stocks. I made a whole video on asset allocation and modern portfolio theory that goes into this concept in a lot more detail, where when you hold different asset classes in a portfolio that are not correlated, meaning they go up and down at different times, by holding those different asset classes and rebalancing them, say semi-annually or annually, this can actually increase the returns of your portfolio while lowering the risk of the portfolio. So some people argue that Bitcoin can serve this value since it's decorrelated with stocks and bonds, that it could boost the portfolio returns with less risk. However, there's a reason we don't hold every single asset class in our portfolio. Like, why don't we have oil in our portfolio or art or other things? And that's because we have to have a screening tool to filter out which asset classes we actually want in our investment portfolio. And in my opinion, the minimum bar is that that asset class has to have some way to provide additional value to me in the future. For instance, a bond pays interest payments, so it provides regular cash flows. Whereas companies, they produce valuable products and services, and hopefully they generate profits and deliver returns to the shareholders. With these types of instruments, it's very clear how they're valued and how that will benefit my portfolio. With Bitcoin, I can't tell that. Really, I'm relying on somebody else being willing to pay me more for it in the future. So we talk about what makes Bitcoin valuable. These are the factors I consider. Does it provide a service or generate profits? I don't think it does. Does it scale as a currency? I don't think so. Could it compete with government currencies who have the power to regulate it, tax it, ban it, and so on? Does it provide a store of value? I think that's highly questionable. Does it provide diversification benefits? I guess that's possible, but I see no reason to believe why Bitcoin would be worth more in the future than it is today. From what I can tell, most people that are buying Bitcoin are not buying it because of how great it is as a currency, store of value, or these things here. They are buying it because they think they will make money from it. They think that Bitcoin will go up in value and in the future, someone will buy it from them for more than they paid for it. If these people find that to not be the case, will they continue to buy and hold Bitcoin? Why would people be willing to buy Bitcoin for more in the future when it doesn't seem to be good as a currency or even a store of value? This is really why I can't justify adding Bitcoin to my portfolio. Maybe I'm ignorant and missing something, but it seems like the greater fool theory to me. Not an investment, a currency, or a store of value. This is just my perspective, and I respect those who disagree with me. Time will tell if I'm wrong. However, I'm certain that I will continue to achieve my financial goals and maintain my financial independence without Bitcoin. I don't really worry if I'm missing out on something by not buying Bitcoin because I'm going to be successful either way. Doesn't matter. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Does the Bitcoin ETF mark the next stage in Bitcoin's ascent and further cement its place as an asset with long-term value? Or could it mark one of the next stages in the hype cycle, bringing on the next set of speculators hoping to find a greater fool? Thanks for watching, everyone. Later.